Well, hello everybody.
Hello.
Hi. This is Jon Croft with Cultural Warfare with Jon Croft. And I'm Jon Croft. And this is Rebecca Croft.
Hello.
How are you, Rebecca Croft?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Well, I had a tough time deciding what to talk about tonight. Well, not really that tough a time. I was debating on whether to make it entirely about the new news between Angel Studios and the Daily Wire. But I decided to expand on that idea to talk about something a little more broad and evergreen, which is stuff I love to talk about. It's evergreen stuff. Which, by the way,
Trees.
yes, by the way, that means it's always relevant. The topic, an evergreen topic, is always relevant. So, um, yeah, so a broader topic like community, I thought might be a good idea because um, I wrote an article about Angel and the Daily Wire's um, arrangement together and came to the conclusion, to some degree, there's still plenty of other things, that are in the article, but in my view, and I come to this conclusion a lot in my articles because what I try to do is inspire people to believe in themselves and believe in each other and believe in community. And so community becomes a topic quite often because that's one of the major issues we deal with, not just in the Christian community or in the conservative community or in the filmmaking community. It's something we all suffer from is kind of a anemic kind of understanding of what community really is and what it's for and how important it is and what each person has to do to make sure that they're in a community. Um,
So, if somebody doesn't know, what exactly happened with Angel Studios?
Thank you. Yes. Angel Studios, and mostly this is actually an announcement by the Daily Wire, but Angel Studios has made a partnership with the Daily Wire to promote their upcoming film, Angel's upcoming film, Sound of Hope, the story of Possum Trot. So the Daily Wire has committed, I don't know the extent of their agreement. They just made a quick live stream on YouTube about it last night. But, this is just a few minutes where they're talking about this. So we don't know the small print on this agreement, but essentially it looks like the Daily Wire is helping to promote Angel's products. Well, at least this single film. And my guess, and based on the actual announcement, this makes sense because they immediately promoted it during the announcement. They showed the trailer, etc. And today, there are other influencers, Daily Wire's other influencers, including Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles. They all also promoted the film today with a quick announcement. And so I believe that that's what they're going to be doing, is serving as kind of like advertising for Angel Studios. And so Angel is going to be, I believe, also, though, helping the Daily Wire get into theatrical marketing. So this is a very important move for the Daily Wire because, as you know, I talk about this quite often on Media Moses as well as other places. I talk about my belief in the theatrical model as a still very vibrant model for distributing films. And I talked about this also in my article that I released today about this. It takes some explaining because many people have been told and sold this lie by Hollywood that theatrical is dead. It's a dead model. They tried to put the last nails in the coffin during COVID. That's what Hollywood tried to do, and it's still going. So, but Hollywood is trying very hard actually to end the theatrical model. And one of the ways they do this is to monopolize the model and then destroy it from within. So, how they do that is to release bad films.
Wow.
This is not. This is this. I mean, it's going to shock a lot of people to believe that this is true, but I have a lot of information on this. This is not just some kind of theory I just came up with. And this is a part of what has been going on in our country for a long time. It's just reached more intense levels of of destruction of American industries of almost any kind. So, including manufacturing. A lot of people don't know this about the beautiful, wonderful film industry, which I'm a part of. The film industry is one of the most uniquely American industries in the world. It's almost exclusively American. So when you think of any industry, I don't care if we're talking about car manufacturing or food, production or what have you, almost no industry is exclusively American. Well, Hollywood is. And we're talking like 10 years ago, we're talking 80 to 90% in the world. I mean, it's a monopoly. Now, in the last 10 years, it's probably reached down to like 60%. So we still have like a large amount of product, and we still because this product isn't just about product, right? It's not just about film. It's about monopolizing shelf space. And I've talked about shelf space before because a lot of people don't understand that concept. But it's a marketing concept where you are basically controlling eyeballs, and you're controlling attention. You're getting more attention going to your product, and because there's a limited amount of shelf space wherever you look, like there's a limited amount of billboards when you drive a car, right? There's only like so many billboards between here and like another city when you're driving on the highway. And so like if you buy all those billboards out, you've got a monopoly on that marketing space. And the same is actually true for theaters and a lot of other places where you market films. So with theaters, you have to build relationships with theaters enough to where they will give you shelf space, which is screens. And so Hollywood studios have monopolized the screens, obviously, in America for decades. And this is not strange. These are the people with product. So who else are they going to go to? So this is not weird, but the truth is when you then use that shelf space to put out product that people don't buy and don't like and rate poorly, what are the theaters supposed to do? So if they don't have some other product to put there instead, they're stuck marketing a product that's less than stellar. So they don't have an alternative, right? So that's essentially what's happening now. Is Angel Studios in particular has pressed into the theatrical industry, and while Hollywood is receding from theatrical, as in they're not making the profits enough to demand all of these screens. So you've got like blockbuster films with like a few people in the theater, like literally per screening, like 3 people in the theater. And this is not surprising these days. And people have lots of excuses why this is the case, right? Oh, well, people are on Netflix or whatever. Sure they are. but there's market forces occurring, and two of these market forces, and generally people will look at one of them and not the other. One of them is an attraction, and one of them is a repulsion of some kind of product. And so, like, whenever you have a product, it's always about those two forces. Like, what motivates you to buy a product, right? There's demand, there's an attraction. But that might not be because the product is good. It might be because you just have spare time to watch a film. You don't know what else to watch, and there's nothing else to watch, right? It's like buying some food, right? It's like, well, I need some food to eat. Like, what am I going to eat? So you get the best thing you can get for the cost you're willing to spend. And this is very similar to theaters and for product and movies. So this represents a long-term change in Hollywood, where Hollywood has been preaching the gospel of streaming, but they still keep holding on to theatrical on a practical level. So they hold on to these relationships, and because the dirty secret is they actually make money, even though Hollywood and the news media tells you that they don't. This is just not true. And the best way to hear all this is to read my article on Media Moses, because it's got more detail on this. But suffice to say, the Daily Wire, I believe, has watched the success of Angel Studios and said, hey, we've been doing this Netflix model of SVOD, which is subscription VOD, because everybody else in Hollywood's been doing it, and we've got subscribers, and this is good. So they've built this platform that's a fairly good platform, the Daily Wire has. But the truth is they just don't put out very much content. And I don't know, this could be for a variety of reasons. Maybe it's because they really care about curating their content. But they've done very well with their BintKey platform. So I really think that there's something more to it with their Daily Wire Plus platform. I think that they must have this longer term plan in building something kind of like Netflix. But here's what might be happening. Streaming is an overrated platform, and you can see that in the trades when you look at these articles talking about how most streaming platforms are losing money. So this has just been the case all along, really. And it's because these platforms just assumed that after committing so much time and energy and money and investment dollars into these streaming platforms, that like Netflix, they would come out in the black and they would end up making good, amazing profits, right? Well, this hasn't materialized. So what's happened is that Hollywood has one foot in streaming and one foot in theatrical, and it's going to end up that both of them fail. So, but what Daily Wire has noticed is that as theatrical recedes in Hollywood, and as Angel buys up more shelf space in theatrical, they're noticing the success Angel is having, especially with certain films that are social issue films that really bring people out to theaters, right? And the faith-based industry does this fairly well. So it's a unique kind of marketplace from that genre of film. And Angel has done very well at it because they've actually succeeded expanding the faith-based genre because they're a little more creative, and this is because they do crowdfunding. So the Daily Wire has at least noticed, I believe, that theatrical is still vibrant, and there's successes that can happen, and actually that this is the right time to get into theatrical because Hollywood is receding from it. They're giving up shelf space. Now is the time to snatch it up. So don't wait for Hollywood to change their mind and go like, oh, we lost a few screens, let's get some of them back. Don't wait. When they open up, snatch them up. So I think they're going to be working with Angel to get more of their stuff in theaters. And my hope actually is that, like HBO and like Angel Studios, the Daily Wire will even consider releasing their streaming stuff in theatrical. Because Angel has really also started to pioneer this platform as well, where you make a series, right? But then you realize it has potential. The Chosen pioneered this with Angel. And this last season, they released all of their season 4, in theaters. I mean, that's unheard of. So, that, I mean, how many hours of content is this they're releasing in theaters? I mean, it's incredible. So, I do think they could have committed more to it, because I didn't get a chance to see it, I think they were trying to do it quickly, and they should have really kept it to 2 episodes per screening instead of 3, because that made it in like 3.5 hours of screen time.
That's right.
That was just, it was such a big amount of time I couldn't watch it. But I would have been able to if they had just done 2 episodes per screening. So anyway, like Angel also is doing this with some of their other projects. So this is not just about The Chosen, right? I believe Homestead is also doing this, which is a new show and film. They announced like maybe a month ago, 2 months ago, that they were turning this show also into a film. And so the film is coming out in December, and their show then I think is coming out the next year, 2025. So that's pretty incredible. And so I think Daily Wire is catching on here. But what we're seeing now from them is just that they are going to be helping promote the movie. And it's going to be a great movie to promote. I mean, if you watch that trailer to Possum Trot, it just kind of like breaks your heart. I think I must have seen it 5 times already. Every time I'm like, I can't hardly hold it together. I'm thinking about adopting foster children now. I'm just like, I can't take it. And when you listen to Jeremy Boring talk about it too, I think he was affected by it as well, personally. I think because he talks about parenthood and talks about how you're never ready to be a parent, and that the people talk about being ready to be a foster parent. It's the same kind of excuse, like it's just kind of, like we got to get past these kind of excuses. And he was literally talking this way, like we have to be able to do stuff like this. That's hard if you want to really change culture,
Yeah.
I think he was very inspired by it, So this is what I think we need. So all of this to say that I believe the Daily Wire is starting to believe in community and starting to believe that what we need is these kinds of stories that motivate and inspire people to actually make a change around them. And the reason I called this episode The Terrifying Prospect of Community is that is the most terrifying thing about changing the world. Is that, you can kind of go in your basement or your closet and try to build something new. In my case, maybe it's write and shoot a film. I can try to create something, right? And then put it out into the world in some way. But like really the most difficult and terrifying aspect of this whole thing is, what are people going to do when you put your film out in theaters, or you put your film out on YouTube? What are people going to do when you ask them to watch your film, or you ask them to buy your little silly product or piece of art? and deep down you're like, oh, I know this is silly, but it's just something I wanted to do. You know, what are people going to do? Are people going to judge you? Are people going to ignore you? Are people going to, um, fail to show up? And that's I think the most terrifying kind of prospect that we're seeing in the world right now, is that nobody, like, you're going to build it and nobody will come. Like they used to say, build it and they will come.
Yeah.
What if they don't come? Right? I think that was always kind of the fear of that statement. Kind of like the quietly stated fear in the background when someone says that. It's like, oh, I forgot about that. Or what if this, It really is terrifying, because when you're part of a community, it's kind of like confession, the confessional booth, if you're a Catholic. Actually, probably they're used to this, right? This whole idea. It's people who aren't Catholics, right? They're not used to this. They're not used to this whole idea of like, oh, if I know who people are, then they know who I am too, right?
Yeah.
Like, I can't just come and observe a community and then think I'm part of it. I have to actually participate in a community and do something. I have to also show up and also tell people my own sins and failures and weaknesses and expose myself just like how they're exposing themselves to me. Right? And so there's a trust factor in all communities. And if you're going to show up to a community, you get the benefits of that community, but you also get the fear that people are not going to accept you, and not accept whether it's your product or you as a person, or maybe they're going to judge you on a religious level, and this is a terrifying prospect. And for me, the thing that I found most terrifying is just that people won't then ever commit to a community. They won't ever show up. It's far worse than if I showed up and got judged. Yeah. Because then I can kind of respond to that, not just to that person. Like maybe I don't want to respond to that person, because I don't have to, but I have to respond to that in my own mind, and that's actually to me more terrifying than responding to that person, maybe verbally or whatever. Because I can say whatever in response. I don't have to agree with people. But what do you say to yourself, when people don't seem to believe or show up? Like, what does that mean? So it's scary to deal with that emptiness, and that loneliness. And it's probably been the most difficult part of my career, is to know that many times people aren't showing up. And I don't mean literally physically, because people show up physically sometimes, right? Or they'll show up mentally on a phone call, but they won't show up in person, right? Which is a very common thing today. People might be your friends and they'll show up and they'll talk to you, but they're not necessarily going to show up in person, right? So that's a new kind of challenge in the last decade or so. But then there's just the people that just never really seem to show up. And maybe, you've had a good conversation with them, you've talked to them, you've shared kind of like your hopes, and people have said yes. But then once it's time to commit in any way, whether that's just showing up then they don't show up. And it's hard to get that back, you know? It's hard to know what to do with that. And so, you know, I mean, stuff like social media worsens it because there's, like I said, there's the second layer, right? The fact that people can be there mentally, but they're not there physically. That by itself can be hard because there's always this doubt that says, okay, they're there, but are they really? Are they really there? I don't really know. And the reason is because there's another quality to being there physically. There's a commitment level that's arrived at, you know, and that you can believe in when you see someone's face, you know, and they react to something you're saying naturally. And that there's just something about that cannot be replicated through some kind of social media experience. It just can't be replicated. Because you always know, even if you could have some kind of a digital virtual representation of your face reacting, you always know it's not real. You always know it's not real. So you always know that they didn't have the ability to come out, you know? And you know, as this continues, I think it is going to continue to be like a dividing line, you know, like there's going to be those people that continue to believe in the physical, like me, and there's going to be people who were brought up from cradle to grave on the internet, and they're not even going to understand meeting. And people can say that's their style or whatever, it doesn't matter. But the truth is, it's a poverty. They don't know what they're missing. And, you know, kind of like an autistic kid, it's like also the fact that we can say, sure, they're different and they're unique, but the truth is, we want people to have normal relationships socially. And autistic people want to. Right? Like, we don't want to just settle on, well, I'm different, and so therefore I can't do what these other people can do. No, it just means it's different, you know, for us. It just means it's different for you if you're on the spectrum. And maybe you have to try a little harder, you know? But it's worth doing that, you know? You know, I think it's sad that people think of it as just, well, that's your style or whatever. No, I think that's sad because I really do think it's just something you have to try and you have to strive to do better. It's not really a matter of it's just my style or I'm busy or some excuse. I think people really do have to try harder to have and to achieve a real community which really makes a difference in your own life. You know, where people are standing behind each other and helping each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, like one of the other episodes that we did, you know, you talked about, I think you were basically talking about being the friend that you want.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's the same with community. You go in without any expectation to, you know, I mean, maybe you go in with like a hope to receive, but without any real expectation to receive. And you go in to give and to be available, to be present. You just go in doing that. It's not like you're taking turns. It's not like you're I'll give and then I'll wait for someone to help me.
Yeah.
You just go in
without expectation. Like, no expectation.
Yeah, and this was kind of something that I felt the Lord showing me about the church. Like, I felt pretty happy with my relationship with God that I didn't really feel like I wanted, like, I just questioned, like, well, why do I need to go to a church? And he reminded me, he showed me in the Gospel of John how he prayed that the believers would be one, um, like him and his Father are one.
Yeah.
And so, I began to see more and more that it was important to him. You're not going to wash your own feet. You need to find someone who has dirty feet that you can wash. And I think you just go in with that attitude into a community, with no expectation, and then I think what happens is it becomes contagious.
Yeah.
Where other people just start imitating what you're doing, and it's catching, and they see you giving without expectation, and they begin to give without expectation. And yeah, that's what I think happens eventually.
Yeah. 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 I think it must take an enormous amount of giving to really inspire that kind of response where people also want to give. Um, I've mostly had a really hard time with it, and it's not because I expect a lot in return. Um, I don't know. I think for me, my difficulty is just giving deeply from myself. Like what I generally try to do is try to judge the situation around me in a way that's like, what does this person seem to need? And then I try to give that. But
Yeah.
the truth is, what I generally withhold from people is the deep part of who I am. That's really the honest truth. And a lot of the reason is because I haven't found a lot of acceptance when I do reveal the deeper parts of myself.
Yeah.
So it's been hurtful, essentially. It's been hurtful to reveal myself to people. Um, and when you're dealing with intellectual property, also it becomes risky because you really feel like you can't trust people who aren't your friends and don't act like your friends. You know. Um, so these are really hard things to deal with community. Is like, the truth is, in my view, as an artist, I'm a talker. I enjoy talking. This is why I do this show. Like, I could probably talk 3 times the amount I actually talk, if I had to. But like, the truth is, like, it's difficult to be rejected with your artistic ideas. And I'm learning, and I'm older now. I'm like 50 now, and it still hurts when people are like not supportive of your ideas. But I am learning to understand that when I share my ideas with people, this isn't a comment on the quality of my ideas when they respond. It's just really not. The way I was brought up was that was always true. And that I should always listen to people's advice because people had good, useful, powerful advice to give me. And that's why I should always listen to their advice instead of even acting and doing things myself. I should listen to advice before doing stuff. I've learned that that's some of the worst advice I've ever gotten.
Yeah.
Because there's so many things I could have done and would have done if I just didn't listen to a lot of advice. And a lot of the reason is because I'm an artist. It's the fact is artists have unconventional ideas. That's just how we're constructed. So whenever we ask people's advice, if you're not asking another artist who's kind of on your plane of existence, you're asking amiss, because the point is they're not going to get it. They're not going to understand it. And in fact, this was kind of like a realization I made, like, I don't know, maybe a decade ago with art. But it was basically this. You know, ideas from artists are not perfect. And they are really in the execution of the art. They're not in the idea itself. So, that by itself is a powerful realization, because what it does is it reveals true art, which is in the making. It's not in the initial seed. So, but then also, art is an expression from artists. And so when you are explaining your art to people with your mouth, like using the English language, in a way you're robbing the viewer from the experience of your art. So, in other words, people are supposed to experience your art through the experience of your art, not through your explanation of the art. In fact, I found that, and this is a lot of the big realization for me, I found that a lot of artists are artists because they have a hard time explaining their ideas fully to people. And so they end up couching these ideas inside of another language, and that language is the art form itself. So they learn this other language, and like literary language, cinematic language, you're speaking through your music, like artists do this. They learn other languages, essentially. And through that other language, they are better, far better explaining their expressions, expressing themselves through this other language. And that is the expression. It's not explaining and talking, right? So that's what artists basically do, is they're expressing themselves in other ways besides the English language or some other conventional language, because that language doesn't do it justice. It doesn't do these strong feelings and emotions and thoughts and ideas justice. So that's why you have to learn this other language as an artist. And explaining it to people is missing the point. Is you actually have to get to the point of producing just more and more art and not even explaining it, just providing it for people. And then who cares if people get it or not? You're just expressing yourself, right? And so you have to kind of stop caring, especially people's initial reactions and their reactions to your explaining. Like, so what? You know what I mean? Like, and in a way, the explaining is silly. So when people react badly, maybe they shouldn't be harsh. That's kind of pointless. But like, maybe if their reaction to your explaining is incoherent, maybe it's because your explanation is also pretty silly. So it's like, well, maybe you're right. Maybe my idea is pretty silly. But that, again, it shouldn't matter, because it's not about the explaining. So who cares, right?
Yeah.
It's about the art, and ultimately that art is not about them. It's about you expressing yourself. So you got to say something, right? And, now you're going to say something else. So, it's about that, the beauty of that, of learning that language and expressing yourself. So these are all things that were, it's funny that I learned that so long ago, and yet I haven't always applied it at all. I often fail in applying that because there are deep truths there that can really give you confidence as an artist and help you to get through a lot of hard times when you're making art. It's really just about you and your expression of this other language. And just enjoying that is should be enough, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you feel about that?
Enjoying making the art, whether people
Well,
approve of
the
it or
fact that
not.
the fact it's another language, and that the artist is really just expressing themselves through this other language, and it's really just about that relationship, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, um, what are those two words I always get mixed up? Objective, subjective.
Yes,
Art,
right.
art is
Art is
what's
typically very subjective.
yeah. So art
Yeah.
is subjective always, all the time, and people are this way too, right? We can't
Mm-hmm.
say like we're experts on a person, or that there's one particular person that is the perfect person, or that everyone is supposed to be like
Right.
this
Right.
one format of a person. So
Yeah.
you just take people for who they are,
Yeah.
and appreciate them for who they are, and yeah, let them be their unique, creative, expressive self. But I do think that sometimes you have a hint, or sometimes you have a clue, um, to not maybe share personal expression around a person who, just maybe can't handle it. Maybe they
Yeah.
can't handle your genuine, real self. And sometimes we can kind of tell, um, that what we have is not necessarily meant to be shared with just anyone.
Yeah.
Um,
Sometimes. It's hard
yeah,
because here I spent maybe half an hour talking about community and opening up, being willing to open up to a community and being willing to expose yourself, right?
hmm
And now here we are saying, well, you don't have to expose yourself to people. Like, it doesn't really matter, right? The, the truth is, this is why it's hard, right? And this is why it's been hard for me, is because I believe in both of these concepts, right? So
yeah,
there's this tension between relying on what I hope to be a community. There's this community I grew, or like, I don't know, 8 years ago maybe, called Film Bar Mondays. This community I grew, and it didn't always go well. People didn't always show up to this film networking group, and but I continued to believe in it. I believed in it for 8 years. I still believe in it, right? Um, and
yeah,
we still plan to come back to networking, but it's been hard because a lot of people just haven't got the concept of community down. They haven't understood that, you know, we have to kind of learn to believe in each other, not just ourselves. And so, there is a problem of, the potential that you're going to be inviting people into your community who don't get it, who don't
yeah,
understand, um, and who take advantage of your vulnerability, right? Take advantage of the fact that you've exposed yourself to them. And so, you know, one of the things I found difficult was to reject people when they took advantage of my vulnerability, you know,
yeah,
and to say, well, this is not how this community runs. We don't run with just um, taking advantage of people when they're vulnerable.
yeah,
Like, we support each other and help each other. When someone's vulnerable, we protect them. And we think of not just our own best interest, but other people as well.
Yeah.
So this has been really hard because what people will tend to do is they'll want the protection, but they don't want to return the favor. They don't want to make it harder for themselves. So,
Yeah.
There's been a lot of weakness in that. And a lot of people not understanding that, sometimes you have to go on a limb for people to really make things happen, really make things work. And take a risk on some people. And that's very hard these days. Like, it's very hard to do that. Because a lot of people, frankly, are not worth risking for, not worth giving for. Like, I hate to say that more than anybody. I really hate to say that, because honestly, I'm a believer. Like, I'm a believer in people, and it really deeply hurts me to kind of admit that to myself. That because, I'll be willing to give of myself for years. And, but one of my weaknesses is I don't complain when mistakes happen. I don't complain. I don't bring it up to them. And so now when I'm at this state now, which is to say, well, maybe I have to stop believing in some people. It's very hard for me, and I don't I hate this to be like some kind of psychoanalysis of my own issues with community, because that's what it feels like right now. But I do sometimes have issues with community, like, because I'm an idealistic person about it, and so, because one of the things I really want to do is have conversations, have sit-downs with people, and talk about how we can really accomplish things, and then come to agreements with people, and then actually work together on those things. That's what I believe in doing. I believe deeply in that. And so what I find typically is you don't find that typically. Even though that's totally rational for me to just say all that, typically what you'll find is people who will act and do things, but they won't talk about it. They're not good at talking about it. They just want to do things. And then you find the other way around. You find people who like talking about things, but they don't like doing things. And that's what they focus their energy on, right? So I'm like a 60 to 70% talky person. Like, I talk a lot. I do, but the reason I've allowed myself to do that, I've allowed myself to indulge in that, is, first of all, it comes naturally for me. Second of all, I find that these larger ideas, the ideas of storytelling, myth, and art, are actually important ideas to talk about. And I think that the more you talk about them, the more you come to stronger ideas. You weed out a lot of bad thinking. And you have to kind of get through a lot of these conversations to do that. And at least I do. It takes me quite a few conversations to get through, like, maybe a film idea or something like this. It takes some time. So, but then I'm really serious. Once we get to that like 30-40% stage of action, I'm really serious about it then. Because then I'm like, dude, we've talked about this. We already know why this will work. We already know why this is important. We already know about how we're going to get our equipment and how we're going to accomplish it. Like, at that point, I get frustrated. I'm like, because I really am not doing it just to talk about it. I'm doing it to refine it and refine it and refine it to the point of saying, I'm refining it so that this will succeed and work. The doing of it will work. That's why I'm refining it. It's not just to talk
Yeah.
about it. And so I really get serious once I get to that point. And what I've found quite often is that people will dip out because that they actually end up being the kind of people who are just into talking. They're not really into doing. And then the people I want to talk to, and they don't want to talk to me, they're the ones who will be willing to make it and shoot it with me next week. But I'm not ready. I'm not ready to shoot it yet. So it's very frustrating for people like me because I want to talk to that DP about all these concepts, about how to shoot this film, and they just don't want to talk to me. They just want to show up on the day and shoot it. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. No. We have to talk about all these angles, all this stuff. And, we maybe don't have to talk about it as long as I would like to, but, we have to have maybe a few meetings, and we could even show up on set. Like we could show up on location. Because that tends to light up visual people. They're like, okay, well, I'm seeing what we're talking about now. But we need to do it. And so, it's hard for me because generally those are the two kinds of people I meet is the ones who they'll talk with me. They love it. But then once it's time to shoot, they're like, oh, I didn't think you actually meant that. Anyway, this is just more psychoanalysis for Jon here. But, I want to get back to, our discussion about the Daily Wire and Angel Studios because I really feel that people are missing an opportunity to understand something here, which is that the Daily Wire and Angel Studios do not engage in this kind of negative nonsense that you see on social media, where people are always dumping on other people and trashing other people and saying, well, I don't like you for this reason or that reason, or you're not perfect in my eyes, And this kind of negativity is just toxic nonsense. And so the fact that two big conservative organizations, which I don't know if I'd actually call Angel conservative, maybe I shouldn't call them that. They're more faith-based, right? So,
well, they've got the Tuttle Twins, which is pretty conservative.
Well, they're actually literally libertarian. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're literally libertarian. But I'm not saying that they would say no to conservatism at all. In fact, they probably 90% are conservatives. I just don't want to go there and make them a political organization. I don't think that's fair to them.
Yeah.
They more identify with, I think, faith-based ideas. But, nevertheless, here we are, right? They're teaming up with a conservative organization. And the truth is, I think that this is very important to note because they're not into the negativity aspect of what's been going on in the world politically. They're into what I'm into, which is getting stuff done, making stories reality, storytelling, and talking up each other and helping each other to make a difference in the world. And so that, to me, is a powerful prospect to make community happen, is when you believe in each other and everyone's got something going on and you just support each other in what you're doing. And so this was always the difficulty for me is what I need is people to support me back when I support them. So I want to support people, but then I need support back.
Yeah.
And that just feels fair to me, you know? And so, you know, that's got to be how this works. And we can't just continue to talk about stuff and then not support each other and help each other.
Yeah.
So it's true, if you look at the small print and if you show up and look the person in the eye and you don't like what you see, do not support me or anybody else if you don't think that what we're doing can make a difference in the world and it's are authentic people and are really trying to do something good and have done good things, right? If that's true, then please support us. And support people like Angel Studios, support people like the Daily Wire, because they really are trying to make a difference in the world. And, you know, we need to know who to support back. And so when you support us, we support you back. But, you know, there has to be a point at which we have to decide really what we're standing for. Who are we fighting for? Do you just want to go home in the evening and Netflix and chill? You don't want to make a difference by, you know, paying it forward on an Angel film, or getting a Daily Wire subscription, or, you know, like trying to do something that's actually going to make a difference in the world. Like going to the Possum Trot movie. If you don't want to do any of those things and you just want to Netflix and chill, please stop listening to us. Like, do not give us false hope that you are part of the resistance. You are not. Like, you're just like all these other people. So, you know, stop just playing footsie, right? And thinking that we're going to support you back. Because that's just not how this works. We have to support each other. And if you want to make a community, the terrifying prospect of that is that you're going to have to give back as well. And that's how the world has changed. These are the people who changed the world. Those are the people I want to know. Those are the people I want to support. You know? And if you really want to make a difference in the world, I want to know you. And I want to help you. Listening to this podcast is not enough. Like, that's not going to change the world. It has to plant a seed and then grow. Right? So you have to water this plant. You know, there's an old Norwegian folk story parable, right? You know this parable about the wolves, right? Every I don't know how it starts, but something like this. Every pack of wolves has the good wolf in it and the bad wolf in it. And you just have to feed the right wolf. Make sure you feed the right wolf. Yeah. And that's the wolf that's going to be in charge. So every pack of wolves has a bad wolf that wants to be in charge of that pack. And every pack of wolves has a good wolf and you got to feed that good wolf. If you do not, the bad wolf will succeed. Okay? That's just how it goes. So in other words, you have to pay in to good if you want good to come back to you. So you have to do good too. You can't just go, oh my goodness, people are wronging me, and you have to be the one to feed the good wolf. And so when something is happening in your community and evil is starting to take over your community, bro, you got to be feeding those good wolves to stop the bad ones. And when we are sitting in the back seat all the time of our car and we're not driving, you know, ourselves in the correct way, and we're not becoming part of good community to help our communities become good communities, when we're not participating in these ways that make a difference, you know, the heroes in Possum Trot were the people who gave a ton and adopted 77 children. These are the heroes, right? These are the people who made a difference in that community. You have to give something. You have to do something that's good, that's objectively good, right? It's not just some theory, you know? It's not just buying merchandise or something, or voting for someone in office. No, that's not it. That's not it. Okay? You have to give back to communities that give, that are good communities. Right?
Yeah.
So, you know, my feeling is that the only way this is going to work is if people start giving more. Like there is, you know, there's where we were last week, and there's where we are now, and there's where we are next week. And if it's not going up to where we're giving more by next week, it's not looking good, folks. Like, we got to get to that point where it's not like last week, and it's not like this week. It's doing better, right? And so if you're not working on a plan to make things better by next week or next month or next year, guys, this is not how to change the world. We have to do things that are hard. We have to commit in ways that are uncomfortable and that are often expensive. We have to commit ourselves to working harder to better our communities. And so this is not easy. I mean, you were just talking about the church before and how, you know, your comfort level with helping the church. I mean, the church, giving in the church is hard. It's very hard because people don't always have the same idea you do about how to help a community, you know?
Yeah.
Sermons are simple. Sermons are easy. You know? What's hard is showing up to class and talking to people face to face, or going out to lunch with someone after church and saying, let's talk about what's going on with you. Or like giving to someone who's in need at your church. And maybe it puts you in a vulnerable spot to do that.
Yeah.
You know? These are the hard things. You know? So like, you know, what I feel like is all these things can be resolved. Like things like, I mean, look, Angel and Daily Wire, they're doing it. They're making stuff. They're making films. They're making product. They're making things that hopefully can give people hope. Right?
Yeah.
But behind them is 1,000 people that's made that happen. And those people might not get much of a notice by us. We're looking at the people in charge. We're looking at, you know, Jeremy Boring or whoever. And we're saying, wow, he's great. No, you don't understand. It's the 1,000 people behind him that are making that work. And so we all have to be one of those people, right? Who are willing to do the hard thing and maybe even change our careers. You know, maybe work for one of these companies. I'm not saying these have to be the solutions, but like,
yeah.
I'll be honest, I don't think the Daily Wire is making enough content. I don't think they are. But that's because I'm more of an entertainment person. I'm not a politics person like them. You know, I've talked about this. I think I would not make a political organization like them. And they'd make day-to-day content on the news cycle. But Sure, but I think frankly they should be hiring people to make a lot more content, you know. And the way I plan to do things is to do things like that, where I'm hiring producers, trusted producers, I'm hiring trusted directors. We're having these conversations about what's the best kind of content to be making. Bro, I'm not here to just make a nice movie because I want to be a filmmaker, okay? I'm here to look at the most beautiful stories ever made that have deep, latent spiritual power in them to give people hope. Those are the ones I'm working on doing, okay? Not just some fun action movie, not just some funny comedy like the Daily Wire made, not to criticize them, but it's like, no, the stuff I love is stuff like Lord of the Rings. Like the stuff I love is like the Possum Trot movie. Like these are movies with real meaning and power and motivational force behind them to change things in the world. Yeah, some of my stuff's artistic, not like a lot of my stuff's not like it's practical, sure. But it's about, like, if you never read George MacDonald, like, I love his stuff because it's so, like, deeply mystical and powerful. And it makes you think. Like, so those are the things I like. I think they're beautiful and powerful. Like, I think that's worth making. It's like the equivalent of building a cathedral, right? Except you watch it in a movie theater. Like, that's the equivalent to me of the kind of films I want to make. Stuff that's just beautiful and it's meaningful and you like being there. You enjoy it, But it's not just there for your enjoyment. No. It's teaching you like the gospel. It's teaching you like about the powers that can change your life. Right?
Yeah.
And so these are the things I really, these are the stories I really want to make, So the truth is, though, like each one of these stories take a large community behind them. It requires a large community behind them to make them work. And so, it's true that I'm not there yet with a lot of these films, but once I get there, I hope to be able to call on you. I hope to be able to call on people who believe in these ideas, believe in these stories, and see the power in them. And so that they can get brought into the real world like a birth, right? And they have to be birthed into the world. They can't just be like written or stated simply. They have to be birthed into the world. So, this is painful. So, it requires a lot of support. It requires, nurses and doctors and moral support and, all this stuff. So, I'm going to wrap it up, but I really want to motivate people that be, like you said, Rebecca, be the friend that you need when you go to a meeting like this, whether it's at church or just hanging out with friends or whatever it is. Be the friend that you wish you could have at one of these meetings.
Yeah.
And also we need to be the community that we want to see in the world. We need to create that community, right? And it's not just going to take a day or two or a week. It's probably going to take a few years.
Yeah.
So, we're here for the long haul, guys. We're not going anywhere. David Gornowski, one of my friends, just posted on Twitter today. He's like, why can't, you know, good filmmakers make good films these days? Like, I think he said an anti-establishment filmmaker or something. I don't really know what that means, but I mean, I have an idea knowing David, but, you know, I'm like, I was almost offended when he said that, because I'm like, I'm right here. You can just ask me, right? Because I know how these things, I know what it's going to take to get these things done. And it's not easy, folks. The truth is, we want to be frustrated and lash out and be like, why can't we just make a piece of art? Sheesh, goodness gracious, guys. Bro, this is not easy. It's not easy to do this. You know, it's like hiking the Himalayas, right? If you think you're just going to hike the Himalayas one day, good luck with that. Like, you know, make yourself a nice shrine. Bring yourself a nice tent for your bones to die and dry up in. I don't mean to be crass, but it's like people die on the Himalayas. That's just what, you know, you have to be very well prepared to do something like that. And so this is why I have these long conversations about this, because it's like, you don't just do that, right? Now it can be done. People climb the Himalayas, don't they? And they came back, and then you thought, oh, that must be no big deal. No, they will tell you it's not no big deal, right? It's a big deal. And it took a lot of preparation, and it took lots of money and equipment and practice, right? You have to actually practice it. And so this is like filmmaking, guys. I mean, Hollywood is not a bunch of dullards. I mean, they're serious artists, guys. You know? But they have a community behind them. And that's something we don't have. So that's really what we need to build here. We need to really actually not just make a movie. You have to make the whole community behind the movie. That's what you have to do. So if you're having trouble understanding why this is not happening, it's because of the terrifying prospect of community. That's why. It's not the terrifying prospect of shooting a film. Okay? That's not it. The reality is it takes a whole community, and that's hard to build. It's hard to show up when nobody else will show up. It's hard to support others when they're not supporting you. It's hard to give when people aren't giving back. That's hard to do, man. But that's what it's going to take. But if you want to do some of that, I'm here. And you want to tell me about your ideas, your film ideas, or your art ideas, or whatever you have planned, I'm here. You can talk to me. I haven't found a lot of other people who want to do that. Thank God for my wife. She shows up to this godforsaken podcast. Thank you. No, I'm not. It's not godforsaken. The Lord shows up as well. But thank you. So, we're here, and we offer support, and we're here to start these building blocks of community. That's what Peter was when Christ called him a rock, right? He was, you could say, he was the beginning of that community. That's basically what he was. Yeah. He was the beginning of the first people who understood the concept of Christ being God. The first person to get it. He got the concept. And that made him the rock. So we need little rocks, guys. We need little people who get the concept that this is possible. It can be done. Conservatives actually do have real artists in their communities. Christians actually have real filmmakers who are just as good as Hollywood filmmakers. They just need you to believe in them. Yeah. And they need your support. They need you to stop complaining that their work isn't holy and pure enough for them. That's not how art works. uh, no, they need they're your brother. Brothers need unlimited support. Unlimited. Okay? It doesn't end. We're just here for each other. We love each other. We're here for each other. Right? So we're a family. And we're not here. We can't reject each other. That's just not how families work. You know, we're the weirdos. We're just going to keep being weirdos, okay? Sorry to say, but what we need is your belief, your support, and then we can do great things.
Yeah.
I promise you we can do it. You know, we just have to believe in it, and we have to commit the time and support to it. But it's definitely possible. I mean, if you just stop supporting other Netflix subscriptions, if all you did is stop supporting Hollywood stuff and started supporting stuff like this, stuff can happen, right? So I think it's worth it to do that. I canceled all my stuff like that. I don't watch any of that junk now. None of it. Because I believe in this community, right? This is the community. This is my community now. So I watch Angel stuff. I watch Daily Wire stuff. You know, like I try to make my own stuff. You know? And that's, to me, far more valuable than this other junk. You know, I believe in you guys. I believe in what we're doing. And so that's how we're going to make great stuff. So, we love you guys, and this is our community, whether we like it or not. So let's build it together.
Yeah.
Where can people find you, Rebecca?
You can find me just sitting at the feet of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
You can find me at Rebecca Loves Jesus on Facebook and on YouTube, and on Instagram it's Jesus Loves Rebecca. And where can people find you, Jon Croft?
Well, I already knew you were at the feet of Jesus. That was obvious. But I'll be next to you, and also you can find me here at X at Jon Edward Croft, and I'm on YouTube at Cultural Warfare with Jon Croft, and I'm on Locals at Cultural Warfare, and I'm on Instagram at Jon Edward Croft, but mostly you can find me at MediaMoses.com, and my stories are there. And if you want to read my article about this, please subscribe for free. Read the stinking article. Comment below. Tell me how dumb I am. I'd love it. Love it. Love you guys, and stand up for the culture. And we'll see you next week.